Tasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmadapariharyerte natvam shochitumarhasi. Literal meaning says, one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Over to you, sister.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Shalini. Okay, so in verse 27, is there any questions before we go on? Okay, I forgot to ask that. Okay, then let's go on. Okay, so in verse 27, the Lord Krishna actually speaks about what is inevitable in life. Okay, so he says that for those who are born, certain indeed is death, and certain indeed is birth for those who are dead. Therefore, you should not grieve over this inevitable phenomenon of life. So he's telling that we all know that, or he's explaining to us, birth and death is a cycle. Every person who's born must die, and after death, you must be born because you have desires. We discussed in the earlier verse, how the garments, old garments, worn out garments are being discarded and new garments are being taken over by the subtle body and the vasanas. So whenever you have desires, as long as only if you exhaust all your desires, you will not go into the cycle of birth and death. So long as you have desires, you will be born and again. So that is why Lord is explaining birth and death is a cycle. But we human beings, we do not understand this about birth and death. And we grieve when somebody close to us dies. We cannot accept the loss. But a wise man understands this about the continuity of life. Okay, and when I'm explaining about this, a famous verse from Bhagavad comes to my mind. I think most of you would have heard this verse. It tells, Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani chatare shayanam, iha samsare bahudustare, kripaya pare pahi murare. The meaning of this verse is repeated birth, repeated death, repeated lying in mother's womb. This samsara of terrestrial entanglement is unending. It is difficult to cross over. O Murari, save through your grace. So it is Lord Shankaracharya's, Swami Shankaracharya's very famous verse about birth and death. Again there is birth, again there is death. And one who does not practice the spiritual discipline, that means if we do not practice spiritual discipline and exhaust our desires, we are caught up in the cycle of birth and death. And we know that, it is the desires that take us from experience to experience for their fulfillment. See, like, why is every one of us here? Because of a desire, because of a spiritual desire, because of a desire to know what is told in the Bhagavad Gita. So that is the desire that brought us here today, this evening, to this class. So that is the one that is giving us this experience. So that is what is meant by telling desires drive us from experience to experience for their fulfillment. And you choose an environment conducive for fulfilling your desire. So one who has got spiritual vasanas will be taking to spiritual sadhanas. But one who has got worldly vasanas, he will be looking for an environment which is related to like socializing, making more money, engaging in all sort of fun and money-making activities, all such things. And all of us, we acquire a body suitable for satisfying the desires when we have. And when our present body, again, I'm just recapping the points that were discussed earlier. So when your present body can no longer serve that purpose, your desires, you drop this body and acquire another appropriate one. And that explains the phenomenon of birth and death. That is what Shankaracharya says in this verse, Punanapi Jananam, Punanapi Maranam. Okay, it goes. And desires, we know that they are very powerful. We have to fulfill our desires, and those who are extroverted people, they are caught in the attractions of the world. And those who are caught in the attractions of the world, they are caught in terrestrial entanglement. And what is the word for terrestrial entanglement? Can anybody tell me? What is the word for this? If I keep on talking, it becomes very monotonous. So just to break that, what is the word that we always use, when we are caught up in worldly terrestrial desires? We get caught up in the world. What's the word that we always use?
Sairam, is it Mohamaya?
Mohamaya, yeah, to some extent. A simple word that we say, terrestrial okay, we have to entanglement. What is it known as?
Sairam?
Yeah.
Is it samsara?
Correct. Right. That is what I was looking for. Thank you. So
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. So when our desires are powerful, we are caught up in the attractions of the world or the samsara. And how can you free yourself from the samsara, from this terrestrial entanglement? How do you think? Yeah, now we have discussed so many points. Can you just tell me, how can you free yourself from the samsara? It is a desire, that is making us caught up in this. Yeah.
Renouncing our desires.
Yes, renouncing our desires or through exhaustion of our desires. Okay, only when we exhaust our desires, we can free ourselves from this worldly entanglement.
Detachment?
Pardon?
Detach ourselves. Detachment.
Correct. Yeah. How do you? Yes, that is a process. In order to exhaust our desires, we have to practice detachment, renunciation, and so on. And how do you practice detachment? When we are practicing detachment to the world, what do? We surrender to the higher. And as told in the verse, we surrender to Murari, we surrender to Lord Krishna, we surrender to the divinity. So when you change your focus from the world to the Supreme Self within us, the worldly desires gradually disappear and the Self reveals itself. And while we were studying this, there's an example that comes in the text Atma Bodha, which was again written by Shankaracharya. He gives an example. Maybe you would have. Do you know what is the Kataka nut powder? Have you heard about it? Okay, never mind. Okay, so it is said that in olden days, the Kataka nut powder. Kataka is the name of a nut. So the powder of the nut was used to purify dirty water. What people would do is, those days we did not have all these ways of cleaning.
So that one you talk Spatika.
Is it? Spatak. Okay. The term that could be the same, brother. Yeah. Okay. Isn't the nut powder, brother? It is used to purify. You sprinkle it on top.
No, it's not a powder. It's a kind of glass or like it looks like ice, something like that. But then you turn it in the water, and the dust will go down and the sediment go down, and on top one we will drink that water.
Correct. I think this the same thing. What I'm telling is also the same.
Yeah.
So what we learned is, so you put this nut powder, just like what brother is telling. The process is the same. It is sprinkled on top of the water. It forms a thin film on the surface, and the impurities in the water stick to the film, and the film, it gets heavier. Like brother said, it will go to the bottom. It sinks to the bottom with the impurities, leaving a pure sample of water. Similarly, for us to purify ourselves, what should we do? Any answers? To purify ourselves, what are the impurities in us? What are the impurities?
We have to do sadhana to purify ourselves, right?
Correct. We have to do sadhana to purify us. Anything else? Yes.
We have to overcome all our indriyas.
Okay, we have to overcome.
We should know to learn to control our indriyas.
Yes, we have to control. All those are different. Correct. You're all right. But in this context, relating to the verses that we were talking about, what is I'm looking for a particular answer from you. Okay, what all that you have said is true. You have to control your indriyas. All that is true. But what is it? How do you purify yourself? What is it that is separating you from God? What is it that is separating us from God?
Actually, sister, you thinking that God is different and I am different, that itself make you different. Like
yes, yeah, we think God, correct, brother. We think that we are separate, so that feeling of oneness we do not have. It separates us.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Any other answers?
Chanting the name of the divine, one.
Yeah, when you take the name of the divine, you are actually unifying yourself with God. But what is it that is separating us from God? We have used that word so many times here now.
Desires.
Correct. Very good. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. What does it say? There's a very Swami also says, man minus desires is God, isn't it? So it is the desires. The desires come from our vasanas. So it is the desires that we have. The desires are the impurities that is separating ourselves from God. Once our desires are eliminated, that's why we are born again and again to purify ourselves. Only when we don't have, after taking many births, if our desires become lesser and lesser, finally you don't have any desires, you merge with God. So it is the desires that separate us from God. So in order to overcome the desires, what do you do? Like the answers given here, we put in thoughts of the self. And we put in thoughts of the self, how, like sister had said, by doing sadhanas, like trying to control our indriyas, all those. So the thought of the self displaces the worldly thought and ultimately disappears to reveal the supreme self, like the kadaka powder, which removes the impurities in the water, and the pure water comes. Similarly, if you slowly start putting in thoughts of the self into you, what happens is, so slowly, bit by bit, all the impurities in you, all the desires, all the vasanas are removed, and it reveals the supreme self. Actually, all that brother is doing with us, it is helping us to purify ourselves. All the sadhanas. Okay.
Sairam, actually, the first one to learn is that to start forgiving others. So
yes,
then slowly, we will understand everybody. So
yes.
that's
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is also one of the ways. When we forgive ourselves, we are becoming purer. Yes, we are becoming purer when we do all the chanting, when we do all the pujas, the agnihotra, everything. It is actually purifying our impurities. It is reducing our vasana, and we are becoming closer to the Supreme Self. Okay, so all this I brought in just because the verse. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Iha samsare bahudustare, kripaya pare pahimurare. So if you have to cross this world, it can only be done through the kripaya, through the grace of the Lord. Okay, only then we can find bliss or ultimate happiness that is lasting. Okay, now coming back to the verse that we were telling, just a little bit more point. So the verse actually talks about the inevitability of life, about birth and death being a cycle. The birth and death is inevitable. That is the only point that is being driven to us in this world. But if you look at life, you will find that the world itself is an expression of birth, death, and existence. It's a process of continuity. Look at it. Infancy, childhood, youth, manhood, and old age. They form a continuous chain of birth and deaths. Don't you think so? When you are born as an infant, infancy dies, then childhood is born. Then childhood passes away. Moving on to the next phase. Youth, you become a youth. You're born as a youth. Youth dies and manhood is born. Then after some time, manhood dies and old age is born. And afterwards, finally, you pass away and you take a new body again, and the process is continuous. Okay. Similarly, you look at the day. Okay. Morning, noon, evening, and night. They go through the chain of birth and death to maintain the day. Just as life is maintained, you see that happening all around you. How's day maintained? Morning is born. After some time, morning dies. Then noon is born. Then noon dies. Then evening is born. Evening dies. Night is born. Night dies. Day is born. So you see the process of continuity, just like infancy, childhood, youth, manhood, and old age. And again, you're born again. It's a continuous process. So this is the case with everything in the world. It's a cycle. And the three gods personify the three expressions of this continuity. What are the three gods that personify the expressions of continuity? Anything?
And
yes, Shiva. Correct. Yes. So what is the continuity? Brahma is the god of
Creator.
Yes. Yes. And Lord Vishnu is the god of maintenance, and Shiva is the god of destruction. So just like morning is born, morning is maintained for a while, then morning is destroyed. Childhood is born, childhood is maintained for a while, childhood is destroyed. Okay, so this process is continuous. If you look at it, if you take a step far away and see how the continuity of life is, just as we have the three gods which personify these three expressions of the world. So the wise people say, once you have this basic understanding of the nature of life and the world, how can anyone grieve over the inevitable process of death? So please understand, Lord Krishna says, the world is an expression of birth, death, and existence. People, now if we look at us, at we human beings, it is not only over death that we grieve or we become upset. We become upset, worried, and we grieve for many things which are less severe than death. We see people complaining, grumbling about others, about environment, about situations. Okay, why do you think this happens? It's just a point that is a little bit of practical application related to what is given in this verse. Why do you think all of us, we always keep complaining about something or the other, grumbling about people, about the weather, about situations, and so on? Why do you think we do that? We are not able to accept the changes that is happening around us. Why do you think? Why do you think we experience, we are upset, we are disappointed? Any answers?
Because the presence of something unchanging in us.
We are disappointed. That is a different. If we identify with the unchanging in us, then we will not be disappointed. It is when you are more to the worldly life, that is the time we become upset and disappointed. Just look at it. Don't think it's not a very difficult answer. Why do you think? Say for example, you take an exam as a child, or your daughter takes an exam. Okay, goes for an exam, and she gets 60% marks, but she comes back, or your son comes back disappointed. Why? Okay,
because
maybe
they have not gone as they expected or something.
Correct. Yes, that's what I was looking for. Okay, because why do we become disappointed in life? Because of our expectations. Our mind has lots of hopes and expectations. So we are unprepared to face the challenges of life calmly. Okay? And why are we unprepared to face whatever life throws at us? Why are we having expectations that are that are not suitable to the occasion. See, the boy got 60%, but he wanted maybe 80%. He did not get it. So his expectation was not fulfilled. So he was disappointed. But what was the reason for his failure? Why did he not get 80%? Why did he only get 60%? So why are we disappointed in life? We have expectations, we are disappointed. And what causes the disappointment in life? Can you just think about it? Why are we getting disappointed? And why does disappointment happen?
If we have unrealistic expectations, or if we don't have enough wisdom.
Yes, if we have unrealistic expectations, you're right, sister. You get disappointed. If you don't have wisdom, that's also a very good point. You get disappointed. Okay. And then, going on, because my time is okay. Another reason, all what you said is very true. And another reason is we have unrealistic expectations. Why do we have unrealistic expectations is, and when we don't have wisdom, as sister said, what happens is we fail to assess. Just take note. We fail to assess or to judge or to evaluate, or rather, we make wrong assessment of people, environment, and situations that we face. I repeat again, our disappointments in life are because of a failure to assess or the wrong assessment of people, environment, and situations that you face. So in order to be successful, maybe you have many questions. Let me explain this to you with examples, then it will be clearer to you. What I mean by failure to assess or the wrong assessment. Okay, what is very important in life is we have to use our wisdom, okay, to assess. Our wisdom meaning our intellect, okay, to assess, or another word for it is judge or evaluate rightly the type of people you associate with, the environment in which you live, the situations you face. That means you must have the wisdom, the knowledge, use your intellect. Keep your eyes and ears wide open to assess who are the people you are coming in contact with. What can you expect from them? Okay, in what kind of situation are you living? We are living in Malaysia. It's a multiracial society. Some of us are living in Malaysia in a multiracial society. We know what to expect from the society. Okay, the environment. And look at the environment. Sometimes the weather is hot, sometimes the weather is cold. So we must be able to assess correctly the type of people we associate, the environment in which we live, and the situation you face. However, if your intellect fails to assess or judge rightly, what happens is the mind creates unreasonable expectations from people and the world. So so when you do not get what you demand, you become disappointed, disturbed, and you suffer. I'll give you a small example. A husband always complains that his wife is nagging. But if the husband understands that's the nature of the wife and expects her to function rather than the way he would like her to function, would there be any disappointment? Would there be any stress? Would there be any false expectations? Okay, you know your husband, and turn it the other way around. You know your husband. You know how your husband is. He gets very upset when the children makes noise. Okay, he has got a short temper. So you know what are the things that irritate him. And then if you know his nature, you will be prepared. You will have no false expectations, no disappointments about his kind of nature. Okay? And so once you have judged a person, once you know how the person behaves using your intellect, you will not have unreasonable expectations around the people and the world. And this will help you to avoid disappointments and stress. And look at an employee who complains about a temperamental boss. If you know your boss's nature, you will not complain. You will accept and adjust, and your disappointments and stress will be reduced. Now, right now, the weather in Malaysia is very hot. So we complain about the scorching weather. And when the rain comes, we complain, oh, it's flooding everywhere. But we know this is inevitable. This is what happens when it is summer and when it is a rainy season. And if it's winter, it becomes cold. So as long as you have the wisdom, as long as you use the intellect to assess the world around you correctly, you do not have unreasonable expectations, and you are able to face life without any disappointments. You are prepared to face life, and you face life, whatever it throws at you, calmly. Okay? So, and that means, say, another person who's doing business. In business, profit and loss is part and parcel of business. But if the person expects to make only profit all the time, he might be in for disappointments. So he must, when a person is doing business, he must be able to accept both profit as well as loss. And Swami Ramatirtha says, it is like asking, oh, why is the lily not an oak? You cannot expect the lily to behave like an oak. You cannot expect your husband to behave differently. You cannot expect summer to be different like winter. You cannot expect your son or daughter to behave the way you want them to behave. So assess the situation, assess the people, and once you know their nature, you are prepared to face them. Then there will be no stress, no disappointments, and you accept life calmly. Okay? And another example is, we must be like the tailor who takes fresh measurements before stitching, and he never goes wrong. So that is what we should also be doing. When we are dealing with new people, new situations, try to understand, try to evaluate, take judgment, make judgment, and understand the people, the situations you are dealing with. Once your intellect is capable of doing all that, you lead a successful life. So the message or the takeaway from this verse is, have a realistic expectation of life. That is the practical way of life. And here the Lord relates it to birth and death are inevitable. You have to have a realistic expectation of birth and death. Why should you grieve over it? So one who has taken birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. The Lord Krishna is giving you this advice. Is there any question about the takeaway from this verse? Is it very clear, or have I confused you, or anything? So this verse is actually talking about the basic, helping you to have a basic understanding about the nature of life. Be prepared to handle the ups and downs of life. Be prepared to take birth and death and everything that life throws at you. Do not keep complaining, grumbling about people, environment, and situations. Be prepared. Okay? You must assess. If you fail to assess, or you make wrong assessment of people, environment, and situations, then you create unreasonable expectations. And the unreasonable expectations cause disappointment, you become disturbed, and you suffer. Okay?
Yeah, and if you don't assess the people, what will happen?
If you don't assess the people, that's what we tend to have expectations that are not realistic. So if I know how my child is, then I have assessed her properly. So like for my own grandson, there are points that I cannot get him to do things that I want him to do, because that is his nature. No. So I have to accept him.
Yeah, you are accepting. And if you see what it is, you don't assess means you don't analyze. Am I right?
Yes, correct. You don't analyze, you don't judge. You are right, brother. You don't analyze.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like you see the fish in the pond, in the aquarium, and just watch what it is doing. And we should not analyze why it did not go there, why it did not eat this one. I'm putting in this kind of imaginations will make a problem. Correct?
Yeah. Thank you, brother. So we must assess the world around us, and that will bring us success. So if we don't assess the world around us, and if we live at the mind level, the mind is always very emotional, impulsive. We have a lot of desires. So if we live at the mind level, then we are having a lot of desires. We want all our wants to be fulfilled. And we know that all our desires and wants cannot be fulfilled. The world does not cater to our desires and wants, isn't it? So you should understand that. So don't have that unrealistic expectations from the world. So that is why it said the wise people understand it. The wise people, the meaning, have that wisdom. How do you have the wisdom? By making use of your intellect. If you live at the mind level, no, you won't have the intellect.
Yeah, the wise understand means wise people gone through the experience.
Yes, they have gone through the experience, as well as they learn from the experiences of others.
Correct.
Yeah, there was while we were studying, our guru used to tell me, be wise to learn from the experiences of others. Only a fool learns from his own mistakes and experiences. That means if you are clever, you learn, you look around from the world and you pick up the lesson. But if you are not careful, you are foolish, then you jump into mistakes and you learn it the hard way. That's what happens. So that's what it means.